a mayoral candidate who failed to vote in several local elections, decamped to upstate New York during the height of the COVID pandemic, and who recently named the Times Square subway station his favorite among all underground New York City stops, called a press conference Tuesday to complain about a satirical daily news cartoon depicting him as a tourist. Andrew Yang, a former entrepreneur who ran as a Democratic presidential contender in 2020, is no longer leading the pack in most recent polls of the New York City mayor's race. Most show him trailing behind Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. On Tuesday, he attempted to turn that around by labeling the news cartoon, which depicts a smiling Yang emerging from a Times Square subway exit, as racist. "None of us is more New York than anyone else. We all belong here," he said Tuesday in Queens. "The kind of leadership we need is going to bring us together." Yang, who in April was captured on video laughing along when asked, "Do you choke B.S.?" stood just steps away from the Queensbridge subway station Tuesday to rail against a recent attack there in which an Asian American man was pushed onto the subway tracks, an incident he attempted to tie to the cartoon aimed at his run for mayor. "I call upon everyone in this race to say that all of us belong here in New York and that characterizing anyone as being less New York than someone else on the basis of their race or religion or any other background is wrong," he said. Yang's wife, Evelyn, took a more focused aim at the news cartoon. "I want to show you. This is the cartoon," she said, holding up the newspaper. This cartoonist disfigured Andrew's face. He has overtly beady, slanted eyes. Now, these white people standing here on the other side have larger eyes and human irises. They're calling Andrew, this Asian man, a tourist, coming from who knows where, but probably from a land of other people who look just like him with his shifty, beady eyes. Evelyn Yang went on to say that after contacting the news, the paper refused to pull the cartoon from its print edition. "Not only does this dehumanize Asians, it promotes racism against them," she said. "And do you know what they did? They printed it anyway." Josh Greenman, the editorial page editor for the news, defended the cartoon, which was penned by artist Bill Bramhall. Andrew Yang is a leading contender to be mayor of New York City, and as commentators, his opponents and the news editorial board have recently pointed out, he's recently revealed there are major gaps in his knowledge of New York City politics and policy. Nor has he ever voted in a mayoral election, Greenman said. Bill Bramhall's cartoon is a comment on that, period, end of story. This is not a racial stereotype or racist caricature. Greenman added that the original, online version of the cartoon had been altered for the paper's print run after concerns were raised about it. After Bill tweeted his cartoon yesterday, people reacted badly to how Yang's eyes were drawn, he said. Bill altered the drawing out of sensitivity to those concerns, without changing the concept of the cartoon, which he and we stand by. Others pushed back on Yang's perspective as well. Hazel Dukes, president of the NAACP's New York State Conference, said it appeared clear the cartoon was referring to Yang's knowledge of the city, or lack thereof. He didn't do his homework. Maybe that's what they're talking about, not as an Asian American. He has not been able to answer some very pertinent questions about life in the city of New York, said the civil rights leader who was born in Depression-era Alabama. They're talking about his knowledge of the city. I would not say we should label that as racism. Dukes cited Yang's failure to vote in local elections, the fact that he appeared unaware that the city provides specialized shelters for victims of domestic violence, and his ignorance of the 50A statute, the law that until recently shielded police disciplinary records from public view. People use racism in the wrong way, the term racism, the civil rights leader said. There is racism. No doubt about it. When people say all black people are lazy, they're not talking about me. When you make these kind of remarks, you're talking about a whole group of people. That's racist. When you talk about a cartoon, they're just talking about him. I think we should stay with the issues. I think that's where we ought to be. I think that's where Mr. Yang ought to be, Dukes continued. We elected John Liu in the city. I was part of the coalition that helped elect John Liu. Liu, who now serves as a state senator, previously served as the city's controller. On Monday, he endorsed Yang's mayoral run. On Tuesday, he called the cartoon a racist caricature. It jumps out at you like a shark with sharp teeth, Liu said. I was just happy they didn't hang a camera around his neck.